hello, my name is Kira, and oh, you thought you escaped, but no, part 2 of the Perc'ahlia brainrot is totally here. Okay. What is he doing in there? Who knows? Oh, so I got myself some dice, you know. You guys were telling me that I should get some dice, so went to a con. These are pretty. So I have some now. I'll probably use them for deciding what I'm making for dinner. Anyway. So I talked about season 1 Perc'ahlia and how they laid the groundwork for season 2. Season 2. Oh my god. Percival. Vex. What are you doing? Season 2 could easily triple my section on season 1, and I don't want to do that, so I'm going to try to keep it a little condensed, but I can't actually promise anything. Now, talking about season 1, it was a little easier to split into Percy and Vex sections, but as their emotions become more entwined, it gets a little more difficult to separate them. But I will try to talk about Percy first. So, heading into season 2, we know that Percy isn't in the best headspace. He feels like he needs to prove himself to be trustworthy again, and I think that's why he's doing dumb stuff like shoulder checking Vex out of the way of the acid. Like, even pre-matron Vex was quick and could have probably dodged it if Percy had just warned him he was coming, but no, Percy has to take the pain. Maybe because he thinks he deserves it. Maybe because he just really, really, really wants to make it up to Vex. But he's doing stupid shit, okay? Like, point number 2. Not telling the group that Anna Ripley is up and active. Especially when it's Vex. Vex, who would listen without judgment. Who he lies to when he promised not to. Have you learned nothing, Percival? But it does make sense that he would hide it, actually, because of the dragons, but also because Anna Ripley is his problem. Vox Machina just freed Whitestone and saved Percy from Orthax. And there is very, 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 very much these two facts. Percy wishes he could have killed her before she got away, but the pepper box would have been too loud. And Anna was the one who escaped becoming the casualty of the list. Considering Percy is trying to become trustworthy once more, telling the others that Anna Ripley is back would inevitably kind of swing things back around to Percy's tour de revenge, reminding them of just how badly he lost control and exactly why he feels cursed and unable to be trusted. So he keeps Anna Ripley to himself in a stupid but understandable urge. I super appreciate that the first 2 episodes of this season both destroy Amon and have Vex teasing Percy about his underperformance as a noble. Because since Percy is like slightly chiller this season, he doesn't really have a snappy retort. He just takes it. He just has to take it, and I love it. I think Vex loves it. And again, we have these two establishing a banter with each other. It's just, and it's slightly different from with the others. Vex gets irritated with people, sometimes justifiably, as does Percy, but with just each other, there is no threatening to string loose with pubic hairs. It is soft. It is not meant to hurt. It is meant to make each other smile. So, yeah, it happens to all the nobles, you know, and that's great because it's right after his failure that she's like, no, let me hold on to you. I'm going to tease you a little bit. It's like, this really great, actually, thing about their relationship is after the other fails, they're very quick to just, oh, let me make sure that you still feel okay about yourself. It's really cute, okay? So yeah, it happens to all the nobles, but then Percy's like little bitchy, oh, it must make you mad, Osissa told us first. But, we know it was not for his own behalf. It was completely for Vex, who was caught in this verbal sparring with Zara. Like, it's beautiful. It's like, Percy's just like, oh no, I've got a snappy comeback and that's gonna help Vex. Ha It's just great. Oh my gosh, I'm already getting like really laughy and not normal. Oh god. I just love these two, and also that they want to check in on each other, and that there has to just be this like this banter and this casualness, and just man. Already just picking up of season 1 and knowing how Percy is feeling, and then just being able to look back and knowing where Vex is gonna go. Just the fact that they already have this perfect little back and forth going between themselves. It's so sweet. And this was before I even started shipping them, okay? I hate this. Okay. Gotta quickly cover the tomb, okay? Here's the problem. Now, it's a problem that helps make their relationship so good later on, but Percy and Vex are both very clever. Percy is clever when it comes to building very deadly things and general tinkering, and Vex is very clever at coming up with plans and general repartee. On top of both of them being having received fairly decent educations, these are two very smart people. And smart people can get a little arrogant when it comes to their own abilities. I've had people say that Percy manipulated Vex into opening the tomb with him, which is just silly. Vex managed to snap out of a spell put on her by an ancient evil tree bastard who had access to her deepest insecurities to try to sway her to her side. She did not get swayed by Percy, let me push my glasses up my nose, seductively DeRollo into opening that tomb. It was two clever people who know they are clever, who act rashly because A, they're smart. Vex trapped for traps, they should be fine. B, if Percy finds the armor, then he's contributing. He's proving he still belongs with the group. He has motivation beyond just messing with Vex. And see? This is their thing. Percy teases Vex a little bit about Vax because they both have siblings. Making plans to piss off your siblings is one of the best things you can do. Especially when, in all your cleverness, you're sure that you can find any traps and then wave the armor in Vax's overprotective face. Of course, the aftermath is completely devastating. The way they both act afterwards is very telling, though. Percy becomes racked with guilt once more because, oh my god, once Vex put himself between her and Delilah and risked her life, and now the two of them decide to explore the tomb in sort of a flirty, silly way, and he gets her killed. Like, that is gutting. That is absolutely gutting. Even if she comes back, he still killed her. He is still a liability. He is still untrustworthy. And yet, instead of distancing himself from her like Vax would like him to, he doesn't. He's like, offering to help her walk. It's cold out, so he hands her his coat. You can hear him really screaming for Vex when she loses to commonly Joyori. I can't say his name. The male Sphinx. Like, this man is struggling. He caused the problem, yet he can't help himself from wanting to stay close. Oh, Percival. Vex handles things pretty well, all things considered. And while a lot of this is definitely a front to keep the group steady, because she is so mature now, she reacts to Percy in a way that follows the tracks that season 1 laid. We know that Percy is dear to her. We know they have this connection. We know they see each other as equals, and we know that Vex trusts Percy. She did put herself between him and Delilah, and just because they both screwed up in checking the tomb without Vex, she would put herself there again. She'd still mess around with Percy. She'd still tease him. Like, that hasn't gone away. She's not avoiding him or anything. It's just like, oh, well, death happened. I might have to process it a little bit internally, but I'm really trying to not make other people suffer while I am doing that. Especially the one who is going to hold himself the most responsible. Yeah. So nothing has changed between them for her. If they had changed, we wouldn't see Vexia continuing down the path that season 1 laid for her, which, is to blush when Percy gives her his coat, a gesture that is definitely meant to be read as romantic, just looking at Keyleth's face, which is also meaningful, just wait 1 minute. But also, that's definitely when I clued into, this could be a romantic couple. Like, that was my moment of like, I connected the dots. Oh!
I didn't mean...
No, please take it. I'm fine.
Keyleth's face! Thank you, Keel. Oh my god, they're cute! Do they become a romantic thing? Because I would actually be really into them being a romantic thing. They're cute as... They're cute. They're cute. But then I'll get really obnoxious over it. But, we wouldn't see them... We wouldn't see Vex being totally willing to accommodate Percy's excitement in the Fae realm, even if he is just getting them hopelessly lost. In his childlike glee, there are dragons destroying the world, and Vex is like, Percy is having fun. Like, oh my god, woman! She is usually so goal-oriented, and then Percy starts having fun. She is gone. Like, just let him have his fun. My god. So, yes, Tomb happens, but in a weird way, it actually pushes them closer together, because it gives Percy this excuse to act in ways that to him might stem mostly from fear and guilt over the idea of losing Vex, but to her are read as cute. So he's cute when he does stuff like this. It's romantic. It's blush-worthy. And I think that once Percy picks up on the fact that Vex actually doesn't mind him caring for her in a way he doesn't do so intensely for anyone else, I personally think this happens in Syngorn, then things just, they sort of go. He lets himself keep caring for her even after the tomb thing sort of, has to take a backseat to everything else going on. It's just, he gets the permission he needs to treat her like he wants to. It's cute. A quick talk about Percy's coat. Percy's coat is an integral part of him. Like Vex's feather, who she gives with love to her siblings, it is a detachable part of his costume that can be passed along with a great deal of meaning. The coat, therefore, is many things. It is symbolic of Percy himself, it is symbolic of Whitestone, his home, because of the buttons, and it is often used as a barrier. The design of the collar allows Percy to partially obscure his face when he so wishes. The length and the cut is naturally sort of hiding his body, and it is another layer of clothing to add to the vest and white dress shirt. Pike and Percy are the only two characters who add and subtract a whole layer on a regular basis, especially once Vax started wearing the matron's armor all the time. But Pike is literally donning her armor to fight. So it's more of a deal when Percy goes between coat and no coat, because it is adding another layer between him and the world. So we do see Percy remove the coat in places he is considered safe, but out in the great unsafe, him removing his coat has a lot of meaning due to the many, the many things that the coat symbolizes. So giving it to someone is tantamount to giving a piece of himself. So, yeah, same Keyleth. Moving on. The Fae realm is honestly so great for me because it's this little vacation between just things being terrible. We get Vax and Keyleth spending some quality time, Vex and Percy getting back into their gentle back and forth while Percy shows off his huge dork side and Vex teases him over it. Like, the fact that she's just teasing him over not knowing everything is great, because I really think that this season Percy is trying to use his intellect as the way to kind of fit into the group, because, he tried to use his social status, and that obviously didn't work at Vasselheim, so then he's trying to prove that he's smart. And obviously that didn't work at the Tomb, and it's not working in the Fae realm, And, so his intellect is failing him. That's what he has. And instead of wallowing in something else that he has failed at, Vex just smiles and makes fun of him until he has to admit he has no clue what these things are. It's just cute how he wants to be helpful, and Vex just gently jokes with him to let him know it's all right when he can't do it. Just making sure Percy always knows he's in her good books without delving into serious conversation about self-worth. Yet. Self-worth will come soon. Also, imagining hearts all over Percy when high. Subtle girl. That's real subtle. That's real subtle. Now, Syngorn. And here is, for me, where we have a switcheroo. Because for the first time, Vex is the one showing the most emotional vulnerability between the two. It has been Percy, and I like that it has been Percy, because the Briarwood arc was his chance to learn he can be vulnerable. But it's time for Percy to prove that he can be there for Vex, in the same way that she is there for him, because we know Vex and Vax hate it in Syngorn. But it's Percy that Vex goes off alone to be with in that house. Him that she asks if she looks good enough to be noble, because basically, is she good enough? Because her noble prick of a father pounded into her that she's a half-breed, never good enough, and Percy's reply is not, yes, you look good enough, but you are better. Your level of worth is not even on the same caliber. Percy should know that that is the measure he puts himself on, is currently putting himself on, by using his status to deal with Dick Dad. And he's elevating Vex above that. They're certainly not worth you. And it's plural, like every single noble he's ever known has not been worth Vex. And he's just like, holy shit, Vex. You're the most incredible thing since the Pythagorean theorem. In fact, I have this list here of all the ways you are amazing. Do you want alphabetical or chronological? It's ridiculous. I have watched the table to screen of this scene. Actually, I couldn't help myself, and I adore Taliesin and his ability to say words and acknowledge that these are his beautiful words, and I think both scenes are good. But I do like how in the show, Percy is able to answer right away with, they're not worth you. Because Taliesin, of course, when he was just doing the voice acting, he wasn't being put on the spot to come up with the perfect answer. He had a script. So I love both versions, and in the show, I think it just solidifies how much Percy respects Vex, that he doesn't really have to think about it. He just blurts out what is on the tip of his mind at all times. The table scene is adorable because Percy comes across as very, very deliberate and careful in how he's choosing his words. And as someone who can be quite blunt, I love that he's being so careful. I love both versions. I know people who watch the campaign might be predisposed to prefer the campaign version, but I assure you that as someone who watched the show first, the depth of Percy's respect and even adoration for Vex, and the way she sought him out when she needed validation, comes across beautifully. I would not be so effing obsessed with this couple if they were not swimming in mutual respect and care and faith in each other and desire to make each other happy. And I know that there are literal days, probably weeks more of content in the campaign that this ship is built upon. But trust me when I say that the core tenets are there, and they are obvious and they are wonderful. If you love Perc'ahlia and think the show didn't do them justice, let me tell you that I am rabid for the ship in a way that doesn't often happen. So even if not all the content made it into the show, the core of who they are and how they bring each other up in this gorgeous partnership is not lost. Okay, so that emotional admission out of the way. Fey realm, Syngorn, right. Percy continues to defend both Vex and Vax against Dickhead Dad, and while I adore that no mercy Percy moment in the live stream where Matt actually had to apologize to Vex, oh my god, that was hilarious, I do have thoughts on that whole scene and how they changed it, because unfortunately Dick's swab dad is right. Percy is being so obvious with the way he gives Vex a title, especially when it's just Vex. Like, Vex is standing right there, and he's like, actually, Vex isn't a lady, Vex is there. Oh, man. But, you know, it's like, Vex blushes, and it's adorable, but then Dick Swab, you know, insults Percy. And she does actually stand up to him for basically the first time, which she doesn't do in the stream. And notice how Vex is so proud. You know, even if Vex doesn't actually come to terms with her father by the end of all this, she stands up for herself. And, like, doesn't even realize it necessarily. When she has a moment with Percy later on, she says that only him and her brother have stood up for her, completely neglecting that she just stood up for herself and called him out on, you know, his shit. But even if she didn't realize it, it was Percy who gave her the platform to launch off of, and I kind of love that. I kind of love that. But yeah, it's so hilarious that he's like, actually, it's Lady Vex, and I guess Vax is there. Anyway, okay, but the moment where they talk in the forest, I love it because it shows how different the characters are, how they're struggling, but how they make each other stronger despite those differences. Of course, obviously, they have very different family situations, but they have both dealt with the loss of family and ostracization as a result. Vex and Vax left Syngorn and discovered their mother had died, so lost mom to dragon, lost dad because good riddance. And for a while, they just sort of wandered and tried to make money when they could. They got into trouble, eventually became founding members of what would become Vox Machina. It was a tumultuous period where they often didn't have direction and didn't have a home. Percy experienced something very similar after the Briarwoods. He lost his family and became a reject of society, also wandering around sort of hopeless, until Vox Machina. So Percy and Vex do have this shared experience of losing family and then being sort of outcasts, maybe with some purpose, maybe just trying to survive, but definitely, look, they found Percy in a prison, what more do you need? But we also have the differences. Percy never felt unloved by his family. When he tries to put himself into the situation, there's no one to play the bad dad role unless we really want to say that Professor Anders had a sort of paternal role in the whole "we would have done anything for you" thing. Percy tries to imagine having a bad dad and thinks that telling them to fuck off would probably feel good. I mean, he blasted Anders' head off. He's sort of an extreme measures sort of guy. I mean, that's kind of the ultimate fuck you, isn't it? I don't know. Personally, I think it is. But he doesn't instinctively understand that having those sorts of fights with the people you want to love you and that you want to accept you, he doesn't get how it hurts to be the one to put even more space between the two of you, because he's always been the one to lose. Because Vex did stand up to herself, but in doing so and laying out how terrible dad was the worst and how he should fuck himself, it's just pouring salt in the wound. Honestly, Percy is just so friggin' direct when it comes to conflict, and I think that's a personality thing, not a revenge thing. He just wanted to be over. Vax is mad at him? Okay, take the punch to the face and then continue talking to Vax directly about the stuff that's going on. Like, Percy might be snobby sometimes, but if he's pissed at you or you're pissed at him, well, maybe that's why he named his next Pepperbox Retort. Like, he's really ready to just kind of get the conflict over with. He'll be, I'll say, in a bit of a snit sometimes, but when it comes to true emotion, he doesn't hold back. On the other hand, poor Vex honestly just makes herself feel worse by taking the chasm between her and her dad and pulling it even further apart. So while she does get some satisfaction at winning little arguments or feuds, when it's actually really hurting her, Vex is more likely to bottle things up and let it fester, which makes things worse when they bubble to the surface. We see this with her dad. We see this with Vax when she's worried about him falling for Keyleth and how that could disrupt their dynamic. We see Vex being good at arguing, but we don't see her holding up well when she has long-standing disagreements. And unlike Percy, she's sort of bad about trying to take care of those disagreements right away. Again, if we see season 1 with Vex having that awful argument brewing between her and Vax, it doesn't get resolved until the fight at the ziggurat. Like, it's such a long-standing thing over the, course of the few days that they are actually in Whitestone. But it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse because she just does not want to address it. So we do see Percy not understanding Vex, and it makes sense why he doesn't, because they deal with conflict in very different ways. But then in this scene, she actually corrects him and explains her true feelings, or her vulnerability, and I love that. Because Vex just doesn't do that very often. Actually explain how she's really, really feeling deep down, and yet she does with Percy. She trusts him. And I think for Vex, trust is tantamount to love. Because, you can't, I guess you can. You can love someone without trusting them, but I think for Vex, who has been able to trust so few people in her life, when she is able to trust someone with her fears and her uncertainties and her true feelings, that is the sign that they are really, really important to her. And so, even if season 3 hadn't happened and we kind of knew that Syngorn was when Vex sort of fell for him, I would say right here, when she bears her heart and trusts Percy with her innermost feelings, that's what I would put my pin in. But I love the rest of the conversation, too. I may have wits in class, but I'll never have what you do. A pure heart. Percy, once again, putting Vex on that measuring scale that is above his own, which does show a rather worrying lack of self-confidence, but let's move on. A pure heart. This is Vex, who leads and hopes she's leading the right way, who will snarl and threaten her way out of situations, who still looks back on her child self and sees not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. And Percy is not saying that she's clever, or that she's a good leader, or a good fighter. He's saying she has a pure heart. Honestly, going through each member of Vox Machina, I don't think anyone but Percy would end up saying that. Vax would, of course, say something wonderful about his sister. He would lavish her with compliments. We know how much Vax loves Vex. How much she means to him. That he will, and kind of already has, give everything to keep her safe, and everyone else would be able to say something special and kind and thoughtful. But for Percy, Vex has this wonderful, special, pure heart, and of course he thinks so. She was the one to take the mask off, to expose the pain he was suffering with Orthax taking over. The one whose voice he heard calling to him, the one who smiles at him and teases him, who especially at times when he's not feeling like one of the group, the one who, if Percy thinks that he carries darkness, Vex is the one who shines her light in his direction. And it's so special. And then he gives her a present, which is the best. I skipped right over the title. Oh no. Lady Vex'ahlia, Baroness of the Third House of Whitestone and Grand Mistress of the Grey Hunt. Oh, I could die. Not that Percy thinks Vex needs a title. He's made his opinion on that clear, but he knows it still bothers her, so he gives a title. And recognizing it's something that will make her feel even better, even if he knows that she doesn't need it, that does say a lot about how Percy has learned to read and understand Vex. He makes her a Baroness of Whitestone. It makes her of Whitestone. And considering that Whitestone is sort of the place that they have left right now, that's giving Vex a home. That's Percy offering Vex a piece of his home. Like, oh my god. Percy gives gifts when he wants to show his feelings towards people. He also does words of affirmation, obviously, like towards Keyleth and Cassandra, but Vex gets his coat, she gets a title, and she gets a shiny little murder thing that Percy made just thinking about her. And Percy is clever. He could have made something else. He could have made just some worthless little bauble, but no, he makes something that Vex can use while doing her thing, you know? He makes something that is undoubtedly from him, but it's also a, here you go, dear, so you can protect yourself. It's not knight in shining armor stuff. It's, let me help you build your arsenal a little bit so you might be a little safer while kicking ass because I respect your strength and also want you to be alive. It's care wrapped up in acknowledgement that she can look after herself, but maybe have a little surprise if she needs it. Also, hi, random tidbit before we get into Saundor. Percy calling Vex Vex'ahlia. People don't always call Vex by her full name. Vax does, Gilmore does, Terrible Dad does, but I think Percy might be the last one. I'm probably missing someone, but in the show, the people who call Vex by her full name regularly are Vax and Percy. Names are an interesting thing for that trio, for me at least. Vax is Vax. Even Vex doesn't call him Vax'ildan on the regular. That's exclusively Gilmore, pretty sure. Percy pulls rank and introduces himself by his full name when he's trying to make a point, but otherwise is pretty content to go by Percy. But so people just do what they want there. Both Vax and Vex alternate between Percy and Percival, or Derolo, depending on how they're feeling about him at the moment. And there is that great sassy moment in season 1 when Vex is all like Percival and he's all Vex'ahlia. They're stupid. But the way Percy begins to call Vex Vex'ahlia, dare I liken it to the way she calls him dear and darling? It's not something that happens all the time, but it means something when it does. This is like shot in the dark, but if Vex is Percy's guiding light, if he uses the kindness and the care that she gives him as a way to move forward, it's because, darling, take off the mask. And darling meaning so much in that moment, because there is nothing darling about someone being eaten from the inside by a demon. Like, there's nothing darling about him in that moment, and yet she's still reaching out to him with that term. So, yeah, nothing darling about him in that moment except a Vex. And it's not like every time, but Percy does initially start calling her Vex'ahlia when he's like afraid of losing her, and then when he is actually like being soft. Like when she gets chucked off the cliff fighting Camaligiori. He doesn't scream Vex, which is easy. He screams Vex'ahlia, which is harder. You know, when Saundor starts calling her when they're in the Fey realm, back in the Fey realm, when Saundor becomes calling her, and she walks across the swamp. When Keyleth, Vax, and Percy are all trapped, are all trapped in vines, or they're trying to like get after her. Vax and Keyleth are calling Vex, and he's calling Vex'ahlia. You know, like. Dude, you're currently being choked by vines. Like, Vex is a lot easier to say, and yet you're insisting on using her full name. Like, but I do wonder if that's the difference for Percy between Vex and Vex'ahlia. He isn't caring about her any less, no matter what he calls her. But I think Vex'ahlia is the go-to when Percy is like afraid for her. And it's not the only time he uses her full name. Like I said, it can happen when he's doing, like, it's a soft moment. But I do think it is what he uses when he's scared for her. And almost when he's trying to reach her, because obviously he's trying to reach her when Saundor kind of has her under his spell. Like, he's trying to reach her using her full name in the way that she reached him when he was under Orthax's control. So I just think that it's worth noting when he uses Vex and when he uses Vex'ahlia, because it's a definite choice. Wow, long tangent. Saundor. God, I love Vex so much. Vex is hard. It is pure. And the moment Saundor, greasy tree bastard that he is, suggests she give it to him, that special pure heart, she snaps right out of the trick he's trying to pull, yanks herself free because Vex's heart is the one thing she cannot give away. Saundor is trying to play it all like, oh, all your daddy issues will be solved, just give me your heart. And that's enough for her to realize, or at least acknowledge, that giving up her heart is not worth daddy's love, no matter how much she has craved it. My heart is someone else's. Cut to Percy! My heart is... I'm so normal about this. Oh, God, my own heart is in my throat. Like, oh, we didn't even need to get it confirmed later. We all knew. We knew. We get it confirmed later that Vex loved Percy by this point. But that's later. Like, that's later. We're focusing on the now. But, like, my heart is someone else's, cut straight to Percy. It is just insane. It's insane. And also just the rest of that fight, because when it seems like Vex has nothing left in that fight, Saundor has her trapped, Vax, Keyleth, and Percy can't reach her, what does she have? Well, she has this clever little present that Percy gave her. This little piece of Percy she's had slipped away. A reminder of the way he cares for her. A reminder of the way Vex will save herself. But Percy is back here fiddling with little funky arrowheads. And she stabs Saundor in the heart with this pretty little destructive thing. Like, holy shit. Even if the camera hadn't panned to Percy following the "my heart is someone else's" line, the fact that Vex uses Percy's gift to kill Saundor, to mock his empty heart, and then stab him right in it, oh, like, holy shit, she calls both his words and his heart empty, and then kills him with a present Percy gave her to keep her safe and make her happy, and make her smile, and we know he cares about her, and the use of the arrowhead contrasts everything between Saundor and Percy. Saundor can promise more, but it's worthless in the end. Percy can try his hardest, and sometimes he is going to mess it up, but what he gives is never meaningless. And it is never for his own personal gain. Percy never asks for anything in return for what he gives. And Vex never asks for anything either. They simply give it to each other. Understanding, care, acceptance, pretty little sharp things. Because it will make the other better off. And that is the goal. They are goals. I hate them. Basically, whatever the other needs, the other gives, and they don't exchange favors. My season 2 section is getting really long. Frick. Okay. So they get out of there, and we basically okay, Fae realm, we got the hearts all over Percy. My heart is someone else's. Let's stab Saundor with the siege arrow. It's just okay. We get out of the Fae realm. We leave the double date. Can we just sum up the rest of Perc'ahlia from season 2 as an adorable little battle couple? Because these two have gotten so in sync, it's ridiculous. Like, they don't need these huge romantic talks. I mean, they weren't huge romantic talks, but they were kind of romantic talks and talks about, like, self-worth and all that stuff. It was wonderful things that happened in the Fate Realm. But then they just show how much they care about each other when they're just, like, plain out fighting. Like, the way that they do fight, like, watching each other's backs or popping Trinket out to watch Percy's back while Vex is busy throwing Grog down from outer space. The way literally everyone later is watching Percy explain the dragon trap with completely glazed eyes, except for Vex. Like, she's just like, yeah, okay, that's him. That's my guy. That's my pathetic little man, and he's having fun. She gets so enraptured by Percy having his geeky little fun moments. It's adorable, actually. I just... Okay. And then they continue to have each other's backs during the fight against Umbrasyl. Like, hello, bad news. It's been so great seeing you back in action. I missed that gun. Like, the kill box to the end of season 2 was just like Christmas for me. So much bad news. I love seeing Percy being deadly. He did take a back seat for a lot of season 2 just because guns aren't as cinematic as Vax or Keyleth, but oh Christ, when they give Percy a moment, they give him a moment. Like, hello diplomacy. That was so fucking cool. But overall, okay, yes, I would say that season 2 continues Vex on an arc she was already on, with showing that extra care for Percy, that trust, that equality between them, and always going back to the mask, her desire to see the true him, an ability to make him reveal it. This is going to affect where she goes in season 3 in a big way, because that's when she's going to actually acknowledge, feelings, and she will be forced to deal with them, except that somewhere in there, she gave Percy her heart. She fell for him, which is going to make how she deals with her feelings particularly delicious. Season 2 is when Percy isn't dealing with revenge and a demon, and while he is receptive to Vex in season 1, obviously season 2 is when he uses his own way of showing care to make it really obvious that the special place Vex reserves for him, he has just as big a spot reserved for her. And this will affect where he goes in a big way. And it's basically the explosion upon impact, because Percy is always very direct about things. He adores Vex. Like, that is so much... Syngorn makes that very, very obvious. That he just absolutely adores her just so much. And he wants to care for her. He wants to spend time with her. He wants to make sure that she knows she's worth it. He wants to make sure that she's safe. He wants to just... He wants her to know how wonderful she is. And then season 3 is going to happen, and that's when shit both hits the fan and becomes wonderful all at once. So yeah, this season 2 thing probably got longer than season 1, but I can't help it, okay? These two, okay? Again, my name is Kira, and I'm gonna make part 3 soon because... Oh my god. But... Percy and Vex... I'm not normal. I'm not normal. The reason I didn't make videos for a little while was one of our bunnies had something happen to him. He got really sick. Kind of within a 12-hour thing, and when we got him to the vet, it was like, they should only be this sick after like 3 or 4 days, and it was like, it's been 12 hours, and they weren't able to save him, which was really terrible, but we didn't want my bunny to be alone, so we ended up adopting this guy. because I'm going to be moving. I'm getting a house. I'll have such a nice setup for making videos. No more orcs, no more werewolves, no more random basement shit. Anyway, so because he has white hair, I was like, okay, we need to have to name him after a character with white hair. And then I decided we went with Percy because he kind of looks like a pepper box flew up in his face. So, yeah. This is Percy. Or when he's in trouble, Percival. So, yeah. And on a high note, we hope you're doing well wherever and whenever you are, and I'll see you later. Bye.